As December 5th draws near, children of all ages grow grim with fear. Those who make it to December 6th shall receive many gifts from old Saint Nick. The sound of chains and bells ring with affright to let you know that Krampus has arrived. Hi, my name is Ree, and I'm a tattoo artist. Don't get me wrong, I love bringing other people's ideas to life. I'll put some examples right here for you. However, art is my hobby and my passion, not just my job, and sometimes I just really want to draw what I want to draw, you know? And today I happen to want to draw my favorite Christmas legend of all time, Krampus. Alrighty, I'm starting out with a sketch already put onto the paper. I designed this design on my iPad in Procreate, and then I transferred it using a light box onto the paper, and I'm just getting some outlines in. I personally like to use micron pens for this. I usually use a 01, a 05, and a 12 for my thicker outlines, and then I use these guys for, like, I don't know, what would be a 3 round in tattooing. I typically do a lot of neo-traditional and illustrative tattoos, and within both of those styles you'll see a lot of really thick bold lines and then a lot of really thin kind of skimpy lines. So that's what I'm trying to emulate in this drawing with these different line weights. This gray micron pen I love using for the outline of anything that would be really done using like a really light wash gray or a bloodline within tattooing. So something that you want it to be there but you don't really want it to be there. Then I started going in and filling in some blacks and some of my darker gray tones. For this specific piece, I decided to use my set of warm grays from Copic. Usually I use the cool gray tones, but I really like how the warm gray sits as an undertone for the colors. I feel like it did a really good job at kind of muting the greens that I put into this later, so I'm very excited about that, and I think it was a successful first try at something. Usually when I'm doing this first layer of alcohol markers, I'm just worried about blocking in some shadows to get depth where I want to see it, and I'm not too concerned usually with blending, as you can see. These are some pretty terrible blends, but I go back in with colored pencil, and that's how I really blend this out. This just provides me a really nice flat layer to blend on top of, and then I have to do way less work with the pencils, and it's fantastic, and I highly recommend trying this. Okay, I have all of the gray tones blocked in for this first half of the face, and then I'm just moving on to red. Don't know what provoked me, honestly, to make the horns red, but I did, and I went with it, and I think it turned out really cool. Moving on to his eyes, I wanted them to have like a fiery kind of glow to them, so I laid down some red into some orange. Then I got ballsy and I wanted to put like a pop of bright blue around the orange because complementary colors, and then I hated it and I ended up changing it later. We don't need to talk about that right now though. Moving on, I'm filling in his forky little serpent tongue, and a fun fact for everybody watching, Krampus is always depicted with this bright red forked tongue that's very snake-like, and he is depicted with this super recognizable trait to bring him closer to his demonic heritage, which I think is a cool little fact. I'm giving him some dirty, nasty, gross little teeth because he is in the business of eating kids, so I'm sure that can't be good for your dental hygiene. Then I originally didn't know what I was going to do with his skin tone. I was contemplating the typical kind of grayish brown that you see on actual Krampus costumes that people wear, but then I just decided it didn't really fit with the style that I was going for this, and I figured that green would go phenomenally with the red horns and the eyes and the tongue, and guess what? I was right. Then I put down a base layer of some medium to super, super light purples to just get a little bit of texture into the hair. I never like to leave things that are white just plain white. I always tend to go for like a pastel, in this case purple, or blue a lot of the times. Pink could be cool. Moving on to this stupid background, guys. I started with blue because I thought that like a cool, like a bluish tinted wintry night with like snow could be cool, and then I hated the color of blue and I painted it black. You guys will see in a moment, this entire border and background situation, it really tested my last brain cell, okay? Originally, I decided to go with gouache because that's typically the type of paint that I use within these types of illustrations. Then I hated how streaky the border was because I wanted to put like a metallic shimmer paint that you'll see in a second. There it is. So I ended up going with an acrylic as the base, which I should have realistically just done in the first place because this is an acrylic paint also, so acrylic on acrylic just makes sense, and I just wasn't thinking, but it looks really pretty, see? The next video that's going to be coming out is actually a piece that kind of matches this one. So I wanted the borders and the backgrounds to be like a cohesive set almost. And it made the background so difficult because the whole time I was trying to see what I thought looked cool, I was simultaneously trying to keep track of the color palette for this other piece that I had in mind. And it just made everything really overly complicated in my little pea brain. So, yeah. So initially I wanted some type of element on the border to tie in the gold from the bells, and then I just hated the way that it was turning out and looking, and I tried colored pencil paint. I just did not like it, so it became a black stripe. Next, I'm going in with a black Faber-Castell pencil. I like these ones because they're a little less waxy and they do better for shading, in my opinion. Everything else is typically Prismas though. But I'm just adding in a little bit of black, going in with a deeper tone of red, medium tone of red, lighter tone of red. You know, you get the gist. And I'm really just going in and darkening, lightening, blending all of those shadows and highlights that I put in with the markers earlier. Then on top of that, I love using colored pencils to really add some drama to the reflections and the light sources. Now, I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a break from my yap fest here because realistically, this is all the exact same thing over and over and over and over again, just with different colors and different tones of those colors. So there's not much for me to explain right now. If I have a thought, I'll let you know, you know? But besides that, just enjoy some ambiance, if you will. Alright, peaceful time is over. You've probably seen that I'm using just an absolute crap ton of different gross colors that don't really make a ton of sense together. I really want to give his face a lot of dimension, and I want him to look alive, but also dead. So I'm using just like a muted pink color, like a barfy yellow gross green for some highlights, a plumish kind of purple color, and I really like this method. I like how this turned out. I think that it gave it a lot of contrast, and I also really love that the warm colors on top of the cool tones just really give it that dead, not human flesh, but also has blood pumping through its veins kind of look. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. Unfortunately, there is just going to be a ton of going back and forth and trying to get a nice smooth blend from here on out. So I figured that while I'm doing that, I could also take this time to further explain the lore of Krampus a tiny little bit for anyone who's watching this video and maybe knows who he is but doesn't know the specifics of what he does. So for a tiny bit of background real quick, Krampus is a mythological creature or monster who originated and is most local to alpine regions of Central Europe, so like Austria, Germany, Hungary, Slovenia, the Czech Republic. Then from these countries, he slowly started making his way over into Slavic countries, Romanian-speaking territories, and Italy. Then from there, it just kind of branched out into the entire world now knows about Krampus, but that was not always the case. Krampus has been around and celebrated since the 12th century, maybe even before then. But in the 13th century, the church really started to crack down on eradicating and removing anything that symbolized what their depiction of the devil was. Obviously, if you take one look at Krampus, he has the horns, he has the pointy forked snake tongue, the goat hooves for feet, the fur. He has all of those standard devilish depictions. So he was targeted by all of this eradication, and he kind of just poof vanished for a little while. But his cohort, St. Nicholas, ended up sticking around and eventually became the inspiration for Santa Claus, which I will circle back around to. But back to Krampus, as this is his video. About 4 to 5 centuries later, in the beginning of the 18th century, those central regions of Alpine Europe started to bring back this tradition of celebrating Krampus, and they do that on December 5th during Krampusnacht, which means Krampus night. It is the eve of St. Nicholas Day, and Krampus gets to work doing his job. His job is to be the counterpart to jolly old St. Nick. St. Nicholas brings the good kids their presents, and contrary to our modern story of Santa Claus, St. Nick doesn't have that list that he's checking twice to see who the good kids are. St. Nicholas actually didn't even do the whole naughty and nice thing. He would have just given gifts to everybody because that is what he always did. That is how he became a bishop and a quote-unquote saint. In the 19th century, Krampus became a really integral part of St. Nicholas Day, where he would even ride around in St. Nicholas's sleigh with him to deliver presents. It is until World War I and II hit, and by the time that everyone was building themselves back up, Santa Claus had already entered the picture, and Krampus was a forgotten memory until early 2000s. I do think that Krampus plays a really large part that we often overlook and don't see in our modern Santa Claus. Krampus is the naughty of naughty or nice, and I think that he offers a system of punishment for those who choose to misbehave. Ultimately, if you did misbehave, Krampus would show up while you were sleeping, snatch you up into his basket, and take you back to his mountain lair with all of the other naughty kids, where they would eventually be eaten by Krampus. But hey, if there's no naughty kids, then St. Nicholas can't give them presents, right? As we end our brief little history lesson, we come back to this horrendous border situation. I ended up painting over all these little decorative bits that I put in. I just could not get them to look the way I wanted them to, and I'm so much happier with the way that it turned out. Then I went in with this really bright orange that I've been using throughout, and I added like a glow of orange faded into like a red into black. Then I just finished up and started dragging it down around the actual Krampus head, and I did this about 3/4 of the way down, I would say. I think it gave it a really cool effect and gave it a nice pop from the black background. Last, I decided to add a little bit of that darker red into the edges of the green border to just give it a little bit of a glow as well. I'm also adding that same glow behind each set of the bells. Now we can finally get to the fun part, aka my favorite part, which is highlighting. I like to use gouache for this step. I just feel like it gives me a lot of control of placement. I don't have to worry about like a waxy texture underneath from any of the colored pencils. I love being able to use the paintbrush and just like the texture that it gives. I'm all about textures, love it. This stage of highlighting everything is personally my favorite part of my drawing process, and I think it really just pulls everything together at the end. So I'm gonna give it its own little star time here, and we're just gonna enjoy some peaceful highlighting moments until I can show him off to you guys. And finally, I present to you a very finished and a very merry Krampus. If this video scratched your brain in a good way, please consider giving it a thumbs up and maybe even subscribing to the channel if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it. I'm going to be trying to upload every other Tuesday from here on out, so that's fun and exciting. Lastly, if anyone is in need of decoration for their meat suit, this design is available to be tattooed. Again, my name is Nicole. I'm a tattoo artist in Western PA specializing in illustrative tattooing. Thanks again for sticking around, and I will see you next time I want to draw something cool. See ya!